What's up guys, welcome back to another video. In this one we're going to be talking about my thoughts on Zamorak and Elite Dungeon 4 as a whole. Just talking about my overall opinion on it now that the boss has been out for a while. I've managed to get past 100% rage and do the different mechanic, and I've done quite a few kills, got a couple of drops, and I've experienced quite a little bit of it. Not all of it, of course, because the enrage pushing is definitely my next thing to do, but my thoughts so far, and just talk about the thing. I also want to hear your guys' opinion on this boss fight and the dungeon as well in the comments down below, so get down there and leave me a little message. I'll read through them and I'll reply to as many as possible, so let me know. Other than that, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and let's get into this. Also, if you do enjoy the music in the background, there's a link in the description to my music channel. Go check it out. So I suppose this is my thoughts on the initial actual release and my initial thoughts and first impressions of the bot. For anyone wondering if you guys think you'll enjoy it, if you haven't tried it yet maybe, or maybe you guys just wanted to know my opinion on it. Anyway, quite a lot of you guys ask, so I figured, you know what, let's chuck it into a video and we'll see what your thoughts are as well. So we're going to start off with the dungeon itself and talk about that as a whole, and then we'll move on to the Zamorak fight afterwards, just to kind of add a little bit of order to the video so you guys can follow along. That being said, the background footage is probably going to be background footage of what we're talking about. I'll put the dungeon footage while I'm talking about the dungeon, and I'll put Zamorak while I'm talking about Zamorak. So starting off with the dungeon, the mobs in here initially were incredibly freaking difficult, and they were so tanky, and you took so much damage, and it was crazy. But they have been nerfed now, and I think this is good, and the way that Jagex have changed it for normal mode plus as well is definitely a good thing. I did a normal mode run this morning actually, as I needed some background footage for the other video, and I did notice the difference was absolutely crazy. Some demons were missing from before, and the other minions and the other mobs and stuff had way less health. So it made it a lot easier, and I got through this dungeon in about 20 minutes without an aura. It was just less than 20 minutes. I didn't use an aura, and it made life so much easier. Honestly, it felt more like an actual Elite Dungeon run than in the past, where it kind of felt like you were just dragging yourself through hell. Like, you really did feel like that. And I guess in a way you kind of are, but it's definitely an improvement on that front. So now my overall experience in normal mode, I think, is pretty much spot on where I'd expect it to be. You can get through nice and easily. You can get through in a decent amount of time, and there's plenty of challenges to face. The demons are definitely something you need to work on a little bit and understand how you can kill those quicker, and knowing which mobs to kill to open each barrier and dealing with the healers and stuff is definitely a nice change of pace compared to the other Elite dungeons. Actually having to pay attention to which mobs you're killing first rather than just killing them off in a big group and using greater chain is definitely kind of nice to actually have to focus on. That being said, this dungeon doesn't have any other bosses except for the jailer, which is kind of not really a boss either, it's a mini boss. Then of course there's a second mini boss that is in the church that is stopping you from going through the portal. Neither of these are really that difficult to do, especially the jailer, I guess, doesn't really even feel like any sort of barrier whatsoever except just chasing him around the room. It kind of just feels like a time sink. It is a little bit irritating if I'm honest, and I kind of wish that you didn't have to chase him around like you do. I don't know, I feel like this could have been done a little bit better. Maybe just add an actual boss fight in the jail, so you go up, you go through all the doors, you come back into the jail bit in the bottom, and then maybe there's another boss fight to do, and it's just one nice full smooth boss fight. In my opinion, that would have been better. That way it feels more smooth, and chasing him around the different rooms and figuring out where he's teleported to at first was a pain in the ass. It was a little bit off-putting, and yeah, you don't want to use any like stat spec or anything when you're killing him, because he just teleports away after 50k damage. You're getting mauled by other mobs and stuff, and I feel like when you're using like anything but magic and crypt bloom, you're kind of getting slaughtered to absolute hell, so it is a little bit of effort for those people. That being said, it's not the end of the world, it's not terrible, and it is quite like easy enough once you understand what you're doing. It's just a little bit repetitive and draining after a little bit of time, whereas a boss fight is, yes, it's got to be the same thing over and over again, but at the same time it just feels a little bit more broken down and intermittent than chasing a jailer around these rooms over and over again. So that's just my thought on that overall. Next up is the actual church boss, and again, I think this is pretty okay. I don't think there's much to complain about with this boss. I think the mechanics are a little bit strange, that you just stand still and let the bombs hit you, and then that's kind of like the mechanics for the boss. You don't really have to do anything else except not drop smoke on yourself, which is pretty easy to do. You just surge once it drops it, and then you just stand still again. So the boss kind of, again, is just an inconvenience. He's just in the way. There's not much effort to be able to put into it. When you think about ED4, for example, I kind of compare this boss to Taraket because it's kind of the same sort of thing in a way. He summons two demons, he summons another thing as well, and then he drops a little bomb on the floor, and it just kind of feels like you're dealing Taraket. You phase him, and then he comes back and he heals. You phase him, he comes back and he heals. It's very similar. But Target takes a little bit of practice, takes a bit of effort, and you have to pay attention to what you're doing in most parts. You kind of still like the fight feels like you have to actually put some effort into it. Whereas this boss is literally just stand still, kill it, and then kill the demons, and stand still again and kill it. And the mechanics don't really feel like anything in particular. That being said, the rest of the dungeon is more challenging than the others, so I guess the point of having this here is just to add a little bit of a breakup. And I don't know, personally, I just think just add a boss fight, or just let us go through. Let's kill those 4 mages, maybe just add the boss by himself about demons and just let us go through. It's just kind of like a time delay. No one's struggling with this boss that I've heard of. Nobody struggles here. It's like the easiest part of the dungeon almost. You just got to stand there and attack, and then once it's done, you just move on. So nothing difficult, just a little bit of a time sink. Now, so far, we've complained pretty much mostly about everything in this dungeon that I've talked about, but actually, that's not how I feel. I actually quite enjoy the dungeon. The dungeon run itself is done so well, the aesthetics and stuff, the mini bosses everywhere, the demons, I like dealing with the demons, knowing where to stand and do the pulls and all that sort of stuff, and how best to kill stuff. It's nice. It's interesting, and I love Elite Dungeons. I think they're probably one of the best PvM contents that Jagex have added to RuneScape 3. The only downside that I see about this dungeon is that you don't have to run it at the end. You've done 25 kills, you don't have to run it anymore. Just doesn't really make sense to me. I really enjoy Elite Dungeons. I am a little bit disappointed about that. What do you guys think? Are you happy that you can just skip the dungeon? You probably are happy. Like, at the moment, I'm like, yes, I don't have to do the dungeon because it's a little bit tedious, and the option is there, right? You've got the option. But had we never had that option in the first place, I don't know, maybe we wouldn't have thought that, and maybe, just maybe, would have been like, hey, another Elite Dungeon to run. This is pretty badass. And as long as it was balanced enough to be able to run through, like, in a nice time, like 20 minutes a run or something, and then kill Zamorak, so 25 overall or something like that, maybe it would have been okay. But I don't know. I kind of feel a little bit bad that I don't have to do the dungeon anymore now that I've got 25 kills. It's kind of dead content to me. I'm not going to run that dungeon again unless I need video footage. Yes, you can still run it for slivers. Yes, you can still run it for a bit of extra loot, but there's no reason to do it. Now that I've done 25 kills, that whole part that Jagex have put all this time and effort into, because it looks brilliant. It's laid out really well. There's loads of little hidden mini bosses and stuff that you could go and kill. There's just no reason to do it. It is dead content, and that kind of feels bad because I do enjoy running the dungeon, and I do think it's a lot of fun, but I'm not going to spend all that time running it, especially on Enrage mode, just if it doesn't really give you anything. But anyway, that's my overall thoughts on the dungeon itself. We're going to move on from there now and head over to the actual Zamorak fight and talk about that. What do you guys think about the dungeon though? Make sure to let me know because I'm very interested in hearing your guys' thought on this. And of course, you don't have to agree with me. Disagree. Tell me I'm wrong. I have absolutely no problem with you guys doing that. This is an opinionated video, and it's kind of good to do. And now we talk about Zamorak, the big boss himself, the actual reason that you all ran through the dungeon in the first place, so you could come here, beat the living crap out of the biggest boss in the game, and then go ahead and see if you can take a bow piece from him. Could you get a bow piece? Have any of you guys had one yet? Let me know in the comments. But let's be honest, it's a pretty difficult fight to learn. I actually found this boss really, really difficult to learn at first. It wasn't the most difficult thing I've learned. Like, in all honesty, it wasn't the hardest boss that took me the longest to learn, but it definitely did make me really think through stuff. And also, I need to keep in mind that when I was learning other bosses like Telos, which took me months, I was a lot worse at PvM back then, and I've made a lot of improvements since then. So overall, I think Zamorak has probably the most mechanically heavy boss fight in the game. What do you guys think? I think he probably does. In my opinion, I find that this boss is definitely probably one of the hardest bosses, especially once you start pushing in rages. Once you get to phase 7 after 100%, this was a totally new learning experience for me too. And honestly, this phase alone was probably one of the hardest things to wrap my head around that I'd done in a long time. I threw myself against this for probably 2 hours to nearly 3 hours before I actually got a kill. I ended up just going for the way of just one-cycling the crap out of it instead of trying to deal with the mechanics and stuff. I just thought, you know what, we've got a Staff of Armadillo, let's just skip it. But we'll get to that. Overall, I think that the design of the boss fight is absolutely incredible. Jagex have just done such a good job with this. I have really no complaints with the boss fight at all. I can't think of a single thing that I could actually complain about. Genuinely, I don't think there's anything that I would suggest change. I think it's really good, and I think they've done a great job as well introducing this with a story mode that can still get loot. So for you guys that want to learn this boss and you want to take part in it, but you are maybe learning PvM still, you can still do story mode and you actually get a 90% damage reduction even at Zamorak. 90%, that is absolutely crazy, and it just means that you can get through the boss fight and you get rewarded for doing so. though. You can still get good drops. You can still get the rares. I'm not too sure if you can get the bow pieces, but you can definitely get the codexes and the robes and stuff like that. So you can definitely still make a good amount of money just from doing story mode as well. So for you guys that want to do that, you can absolutely do so. I believe that your loot is going to increase as your enrage pushes up once you get into the enrage mode. I know that you do get more drops as you push. So once your enrage reaches, say 100%, you end up getting around about 5 mil a kill. From normal mode, it's around about 1.5 to 2 mil at the moment. And then once you push up like 50-60%, it goes up to like 3 or 4 mil, and then it just keeps going up and up. And the further you go, the more loot you're going to get, and more like loot spaces you get. So you may get 4 drops once you kill him in normal mode, and then after that you get 5, then 6, and then 7 as it scales up through enrage. We know that there is a mechanic at 100% that gets added. The phase 7 is a completely new phase. You kill the boss, and then he drags you into another phase, into the realm bit, and you have to deal loads of damage in there too. And then I believe there's another mechanic, I think, once you get to either 500% or 1000. I'm not completely sure, but I'm looking forward to getting there myself and experiencing all the different changes. The boss fight itself is incredibly well thought out. You have to work out the best order to use the edicts and activate different mechanics. And as you do that, different things get added to the fight as well, such as healers come out. You need to kill those little pain in the asses off, which is probably like the only irritating thing of the fight, in my opinion. I think the fight's pretty damn good overall. And then you've got other things like dealing with prayers and stuff. You've got the melee hit that you need to deal with. The boss is pretty punishing. If you screw up some mechanics, you're just going to be dead. Like, you got to deal with stuff properly. You got to know how to use defensives, and you need to know about timing abilities and stuff at the right time. It is a really well thought out, challenging fight. In fact, the only downside that I can think of, the only downside that comes to mind is that it seems like it's designed around Crypt Bloom armor and using magic here. I know that you can still do it with range. I know you can still do it with melee. People are still pushing with range and melee and doing just fine. But Crypt Bloom armor makes this so much easier to do, and it's crazy how it seems like it is built around that. So the damage reduction that you get from Crypt Bloom is absolutely incredible, and I personally will probably only ever do Zamorak with magic with Crypt Bloom armor because it just makes it so much more chill and easier to deal with. So I would say the only downside is for people that don't have Crypt Bloom, you kind of want to get Crypt Bloom to push through this, unless you're some sort of freaking PVM god, in which case it doesn't really matter. You could probably do it no armor, no weapons, just a trout in your inventory or something. But you know what I'm saying? It kind of just feels like, to make the boss as difficult as it has, they've just gone, we need the Crypt Bloom armor in there, we've got the Crypt Bloom, we've got Animate Dead, right, now we can make this boss incredibly difficult. And they have. When you push in rage, it's very difficult. It definitely is. And I think the boss overall is great. Don't get me wrong, this is the only thing that I think is a thing, and for me personally, it doesn't bother me because I have Crypt Bloom, I have Animate Dead, and I prefer to use magic. But that's probably the only downside that I've heard people talking about. Crypt Bloom armor's gone from like 2 bill, I think it was, or something, to like 4 bill at the moment. It's crazy. That's how in demand it is for this boss. That being said, with the different phases on the edicts and going in the realm to actually deal with the mage and coming back out and then dealing with the different mechanics, the big nuclear bomb thing that he throws at you, at least that's what I call it. It just does a lot of damage, so it's like a nuclear bomb. All that sort of stuff makes you think. You've got to pay attention. You've got to really focus on the fight. And I think that's a good thing. When you're doing a boss that's meant to be the hardest boss in the game, these are definitely things that you want to be focusing on and things that you want to be doing. It's an engaging fight. You can go in there with up to 5 people. You can go with your friend. You can go, it's just good. I can't really think of anything else to complain about with this boss. I really want to think of something to mention, but I can't. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Zamorak as well. I'm of course very interested, just like with the dungeon. But overall, I think Jagex have done a great job with ED4, with Zamorak, and the drops and the bow itself as well. I think they've just done a great job here, and it's just good things all around, in my opinion. Anyway, let me know what you think. If you did enjoy this, then do leave a like. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. I know this is a very different video. We've gone back to kind of like with the olden days when I just used to talk about my thoughts on everything and share that with you guys. Thought we'd do that, see what you guys thought, and yeah. Otherwise, thank you so much to the channel members who support the channel that bit extra each and every day. You guys are absolutely incredible. Of course, your names are on screen as we are talking. And if anyone else wants to join the channel members, then click the join button by the sub button. You get some perks while supporting the channel. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll catch you all in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye.